Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we have another installment in the video series getting ready for conversations that will take place on Thanksgiving. Today we'll end up talking about Ted Cruz, Sesame Street, and social progress. This is prompted by a question that came in. It's really long, I'm not going to read the whole thing. But the summary of it is a guy doesn't want to go see his dad. Doesn't want to go see his dad for Thanksgiving because his dad is a huge fan of Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, ripping America apart one family at a time. Because he's a huge fan of Ted Cruz, his father has been all over Facebook ranting and raving about Sesame Street. The latest complaint is that Sesame Street intends on introducing an Asian American character. The person who sent the message, well, their wife is Asian. And by that, he goes on to clarify that she grew up in San Francisco, and her family has been here long enough to have had members of her family interned during World War II. Despite length of residence in the United States, his father is intent on making her the spokesperson for all Asian people everywhere anytime the opportunity arises. Since his wife is going to make him go, he wants ammunition for this conversation that he knows is going to happen. What he said he wanted was one of those videos where somebody's like, hey, when did this become so woke? And I'm like, always has been, you just didn't know it. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely true of Sesame Street. But there's something else we have to get into first. What is Sesame Street? It's a kid show, sure. I mean, no doubt. But it's not just for entertainment, right? It's for education. And it teaches not just letters and numbers, but it addresses a lot of difficult topics. And it has. It's a tool for parents, those who are super involved with their kids. It gives them new framing devices to talk about difficult subjects. Those who, because we live in the world we live in, and they have to work 60 hours a week, can't be involved as much as they'd like. It gives them a tool to kind of reinforce the conversations that they can have. And for those kids that have parents who aren't involved at all, it gives them a ready stand-in to teach them about the world and have those difficult conversations. That's what Sesame Street is. It's what it's always been. We're talking about a show that debuted in the late 60s, early 70s with a ridiculously integrated neighborhood. I know you're shocked that it is socially progressive. Gasp, right? I'm shocked. It was kind of always the point. To address the issues that kids today are facing and things that they overhear, whether it be through a phone call, which a kid hears about racism, or any of the other things that have been addressed. To me, Sesame Street isn't woke enough. If it was me, if I was running Sesame Street, we would have characters that help kids understand food insecurity, help them understand addiction, help them understand incarceration, homelessness, adoption, talks about refugees, health in general, gender equality. We'd have a character with two dads. We'd have skits that promoted natural hair and getting rid of the idea of Eurocentric beauty standards, helping people feel normal in their own skin and who they are. We'd have an Afghan Muppet named Zari championing girls' rights. In case you haven't figured it out, all of that stuff, that's already Sesame Street. Sesame Street has a long history of addressing difficult topics or topics that are seen as outside the normal conversation, but they know that kids are hearing it. If you want to know how far this goes, I suggest you look up a character named Kami, Kami. She had a conversation with former President Clinton. If you want to know how far Sesame Street goes to introduce difficult topics to kids, start there. Sesame Street, in a lot of ways, fills in the gap for parents who are scared to have these conversations, who don't know how to talk to their kids. Now, as far as the big complaint of them assigning races to the Muppets, yeah, you're a few decades too late for that. You need to look to Rosita in 1991. That's the first one that I'm aware of. There's probably some before then. I'm not actually a Sesame Street expert. But I do know, over the years, they have always sought to be inclusive and diverse. From the beginning, the human characters were intentionally diverse. You're talking about a show that had blind Muppets. You had a dog that spoke sign language, Barkley. Guess he couldn't bark. You have an autistic Muppet. You have a bunch of stuff. It's Sesame Street. It's what they do. Now, the opposition to this. What do you really make of it, you know? It is what it is. They were told to be mad about it, so they are. They're easily led astray, and this anger and this manufactured outrage gives them an excuse to be their worst when it comes to being socially regressive. And that's what it is. That's what it's about. It's about holding up progress. It's about wanting to go back to a different time. Make no mistake about it. The people who are opposed to Sesame Street's programming today and what they're teaching today are the same people who would have been opposed to Mr. Rogers and that pool scene. That's who you're talking about. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about people that want to uphold the status quo. So they don't want socially progressive ideas. They want to uphold the status quo, whatever that is, which means if there are power structures that are unjust, by default, these people want to uphold those unjust power structures, right? The good news is you can look to that Mr. Rogers scene and see how this plays out. On a long enough timeline, the social progressive always wins. Always, no exceptions. Those who want to uphold the past, the status quo, to keep people down so they can stay comfortable, they always lose. They always end up on the wrong side of history because humanity will always move forward. Humanity will always progress. It doesn't matter what barriers they erect, what they put in the way. Humanity will crash through it and society will move forward. And I am fairly certain that Big Bird and Oscar will be leading the charge. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.